Hello and welcome to a How to Adobe tutorial by Gabriel Wagner on Premiere Pro. Premiere Pro is a great software to get you started in editing with quick and easy edits and some of the most useful tools in the industry. So let's get started with the new project here. So open it up. At the top, see here it's already highlighted. You can just change the name of the project. We're going to call ours tutorial. And here is where you can change the location of the project file. I would recommend making a folder on your desktop and saving it there. You can browse to view the location of your file. I already have one set up called music video, but I could also change it to one called tutorial. There's a bunch of different options for me. Click choose once you've selected your folder. There's going to be a lot of settings down here. You can ignore most of them. If you're on Windows, then Metal would not be available for you, I believe. But if you are on Macintosh, I would recommend selecting Metal. It is just more optimized for that platform. If not, then worst case scenario, just take whatever it gives you. It's not a big deal. Once you are all set up, click OK. And this is where the magic happens. Welcome to Premiere Pro. I know it doesn't look like much now, but we'll get started. So I don't know if you load it in, it'll automatically be selected, but at the top bar here, you'll have all your different editing windows, excluding learning. We don't really like learning. We're going to click on assembly. If we actually browse through, you can see that all of them have different stuff going on, color, effects, audio, graphics, but we're going to stick with assembly because that's where you start off. So you'll see three different windows here. We're going to have this main one, import media to start. Then we're going to have this program viewer, and then we're going to have our timeline. So let's start with importing our media. All the media for this tutorial will be provided in the project folder called tutorial. You can drag and highlight everything like this and just click import. Really easy. If that isn't your cup of tea, you can just drag it in, just like you would any other file. So let's start viewing our clips. Here is my pre-prepared version of what we're going to be editing today.
On the beat.
So that's just a little short cooking video I had footage from back in 9th grade, and we're just going to re-edit it, make it look nice and fancy. So if you double click on any given file, we can open it up and view it over here in our second panel. This is our program viewer. Just like I did with our previous little clip over here, you can open it up, press play, very intuitive. These things I'll get to in a little bit. These are actually pretty useful, but for now, we are just going to do it old-fashioned way. If you've used iMovie before, you should be very comfortable with these steps. So we're going to set up our new program. In order to set up a new program, all you have to do is drag in some footage that you found. You can double click it, make sure it's the right footage. So let's just drag that in here to this bottom window where it says timeline. Just let it drop. We have V1, A1, A2, A3. These are all important, but I'll get to them in a little bit. Now, if we press play, you can see that that's the audio from the original video, and we have it all linked up down here. This timeline is this program window right here. We can actually flip-flop back and forth, and we can go to the source window. When I press play here, note how the blue play bar is not going to move. This is because we are viewing the original file. We are not viewing the project. No edits will get saved where it says source. We want to make sure we have program selected if we're doing editing. The first order of business is disabling that A1 track. Our A1 track is going to contain all of our video audio when we import them. And just because it's a music video and we don't really want background audio during our shots, we're just going to press M here. M is mute track. And you'll see it'll highlight green. If I go back and play it now, no sound whatsoever. We'll do the rest with our other videos. Here's your next shot. This is our burner shot. Now here's where I'm going to get into these mark in, mark out tabs. If we were to go to a point in the video that we like, this is actually a slow-mo video, so you can see it switches into slow-mo, and we like that slow-mo shot. So right around where it switches, you can either click on this or press I. You see how that makes that little almost highlight selection window? We're going to go through, scan it until we want it to about to stop. I think that's long enough. And we're going to click that mark out thing. Now we have a specific little template that we can actually drag right into our project. So now we're going to go back down here. This is our timeline. If you want our playhead to snap, we want it to snap to the end of this clip. And it's actually very convenient. If you press and hold shift, it'll snap right on there. Now, if we go back to our source window, don't forget this is our raw footage. We have that highlighted thing still there. And now we can either press comma or click here. And this inserts our clip right in there. So now this is already pre-cropped. We don't have to go around and drag things. It is this little selection of our original media. So we're going to go through, and for now, I'm just going to, I think that little selection thing was a one-off. So let's just drag all these other clips in here. I know exactly what they are, so I don't really have to view them. If you note, if you drag it up and down, you're going to get these different almost stagings. This is for layering video and audio, but for now we want to put it on the first layer. So get them as close as possible together and let it go. Same thing here. And here we go. I forgot to mention this. This is our zoom scrubber. I don't know what it's called. I just call it zoom scrubber. You can drag this bar out to make the project longer or shorter. It's very useful for when you have to do small edits or large ones like these. So let me just zoom out here so I get enough empty space to work with and drag this last clip down. So now we can scrub through. We see our burner shot, our cooking fish, I believe, some peppers, and a dish with a pepper. This shot looks kind of weird, and that's because it was shot at a different resolution. If you want different resolution shots to work within the same composition or the same program, we're going to have to make a few adjustments. So the easiest way to do this is to highlight it, right click on it, or if you're on a trackpad, click with 2 fingers, scroll down, and we are going to look for set to frame size. If we click on that, there, fixes it perfectly. The reason that happens is I believe this composition is at 1920 by 1080p, and this is a lower resolution. So since that is a lower resolution, it doesn't fill up all of the pixels needed to make it a full shot. So we just tell the program to stretch it out to do so. This is not a good thing in general because it means you're losing quality, but for our purposes, it's more than fine. And if you decide to work with footage maybe shot on an iPhone, vertically and horizontally, you'll want to know how to do these things so you can make all your footage look nice. Finally, it wouldn't be a music video if we didn't have any music. So let's go back to the very beginning. And here is where we're going to use our audio layering track. If we were to drag in all our audio over this A1 track, it would be muted. Here's where we use audio layering. So now we're going to drag this down into our A2 track. Our A2 track has still not been modified whatsoever. So now if we play, we have all our audio there. This is good if you want to do something like some voiceover in an interview, maybe some music. So layer your audio accordingly. Now, I would say we have all our basic shots imported. We can start doing all the fun editing stuff. Now we're going to change our tab over to editing. Here's where we get a lot more tools at our disposal. Our timeline becomes a little bigger. Our project window becomes a lot smaller. And now we have this very special window up here, which are effect controls. So this lets us do fancy things. In our original video, we had a fade in effect. So let's do that right now. In order to change how much of a fade a video has, that is known as opacity. So if you were to drag with your finger, you can make this more opaque or less opaque. And that in turn makes it more like what's behind it. Since there's only black void behind it, just turns to black void. It's very convenient. So how do we change that over time? This is a very common usage over Adobe products. You can use this in Adobe After Effects. I believe even Photoshop has some animation that requires keyframing. So keyframing is a great skill to pick up. Here, we can see this little watch. We're just going to click on it. That means toggle animation. That means that we can now change values over time. So at the very beginning, we want it to be black. So let's set this value to 0. Maybe let's give it a little bit of time to fade in. And I would say about there should be faded, right? You can just guesstimate it in your head. Set that to 100. Now, Adobe will automatically make a smooth transition between those 2 points. So if you play it back, perfect fade in effect. Look, took less than 15 seconds. You don't have to use iMovie's ugly transitions. It's the best, I know. So now we can go along and play this, see what we have here.
Dice is on the beat.
This is already pretty poorly edited. We haven't really done anything yet, so let's make sure to sync it up with the video. Or the audio, excuse me. The way that I like doing this is counting in my head. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then switch there. We are going to use this tool right here. You're going to have your toolbar in the middle on your edit section, and we're going to use this ripple edit tool. Ripple edit is a very useful tool because it allows you to preserve certain video ins and outs whenever you're editing. So let's just say we want to make the back of this shorter. You see how this glows yellow and the arrow is pointing towards that clip? That means that we are going to cut this clip back. Now, as we're doing this, you can see in our window that shows where that ripple edit is going to end. If you notice how the right is staying the same, that is because we're using ripple editing. That means that our clip on the right that we're going to transition to always starts at the same place. This is what we want because we already did that pre-little edit. So now if we play this back, switches right on cue. So now let's figure out what we want to do for our next shot.
Dice is on the beat.
I think that actually looks quite good there. Maybe we should have a better transition though. Here we go. So let's sync it up with the audio again.
Dice is on the beat.
And then there we should cut. So now same thing again. We're going to use ripple edit tool. Drag that down to wherever we need it. As long as you have your playhead there, it'll automatically snap there without even pressing shift. It's very useful to do. So now we're on transition. And then another transition right there with the bass. And right there with the kick. So if you notice that it's kind of hard for me to just zoom in on that point, now we can use that zoom window that we had before and specifically find that point in audio. So if you scroll through, there's a kick right there. Zoom out, use a ripple edit tool. Boom. So this clip needs a little work. It starts off with this lady putting in some generic vegetables. But note how the slow-mo starts in the middle and there's not really a lot going on in this shot. Let's scroll through and see if we can find anything else better. So that looks a little bit more action-packed. She's kind of stirring it up there. Oil flying in the air. So let's use that bit. I like that. How about from here? So now we can use our ripple edit tool in reverse. So now we drag it from the beginning to this point. So now our clip on the left is staying the same while our clip on the right is being edited. And so you see now we see nothing because everything got shifted over to where we made the edit. I'd say around there is when we should start fading out. I had a very short clip when I made it. So there we go. We can fade out from that point, I think. Now we're going to go back to our selection tool. Select this clip again. And now we can do our keyframing, but in reverse. So we're going to start at 100% opacity. We're going to have to toggle this again because now we're working with a new clip and a new opacity for that clip. So you have to let it know that we want to animate the opacity for that clip. It's going to start at 100. And I would say it would fade at about there, right where the new beat starts. So put 0 here. Enter. So now it's going from 100 to 0. So if we watch it back. Very simple effect, very effective. Now we're going to do something similar with our audio. Because since it's the end of the clip, our audio should start fading out. So now we're going to go over here to effect controls once we selected our audio. Now we're going to have something similar here. You see level's already been keyframed, which means we can change it easily. Also, Premiere just does that from time to time. It likes auto saving. It's a very useful feature. Now we are going to press this button right here to add or remove a keyframe. Since we want to start at 0 decibels and it's already at 0 decibels, I can't really tell it to like do whatever you're doing consistently because it'll do that automatically. So I have to let it know manually. I click add keyframe. So now it knows at this specific point, no matter what, it should be at 0 decibels. Play back. And at this point, it should probably be as low as it could possibly be. So now we're going to drag with our finger. I don't really know what the lowest valuable for decibels is. Drag with your finger and just go all the way down. And I guess it was negative 281.1. I did not know that. Now, Premiere automatically makes a transition for us. So if we watch it back, beautiful fade out. Now, since the rest of this audio is basically garbage, we can actually just cut this. Now we're going to use our razor tool. Razor tool is very good for chopping up video, and just like what I said before, it works great on our playhead. So you can kind of just cut it right there. So let's watch it back.
Dice is on the beat.
All right, great. So I would say that's our basic editing complete. Now we're gonna want to go into our effects. So I think the video is looking a little stale with only jump cuts in between. In my original video, I made more use of crossfade effects. So you'll see once we open up our effects window, we're gonna have our timeline the same again. We're gonna have our effect controls. There's nothing selected here, but if you were to select something, it would bring up the same thing that we had in the editing window. And now we have a new tab here. It says effects. So here's where we can go and get our transitions. So now let's just look up cross dissolve, not crossfade. I think crossfade is iMovie. Now we can just drag that in, put it in between two clips. Now note, wherever you drag it, that's where it'll start. Since we want it to fade in between two clips, we want to drag it in between those two clips. And we can let go, see what happens. Very clean, very smooth transition. Let's just say we want it a little bit longer. So just like you can edit clip properties by selecting them, you can also edit transition properties by selecting them. So now here it's a lot more scarce. There's no opacity, there's no transform. All it is duration. Duration is also very useful. So let's just say we want it well, actually, let's go here and edit it manually. We want it's measured in frames, so it's kind of complicated to work with, but it should be fine if we just enter a 1. You can kind of just see it happen. There we go. So you see that's a little longer, or if you want to, you can make it shorter. So I think 10 would be shorter. Let's see how fast that goes. Very fast. So that's how you do a basic crossfade effect. You can change the time by selecting it and then going to your effect controls window. But for now, I'm still going to say that's good. So let's play through the rest here. How do we want to transition to this frying fish? Let's use maybe some other transitions. So now if you want to freely browse some of the video transitions, you can just click on this folder, click on the little down arrow, and now you have a bunch of options to work with. We have 3D motion, which kind of look like PowerPoint slides if you actually open them up. They're not the prettiest, but if you want to use them, you can. I'm not going to stop you. I just don't like them personally. Dissolve, all these. A slide is nice, or a whip. Whips are good. So let's try this out. Whip is a very fast, effective transition. It looks way better than if we were to use a wipe, just because it has that little blurry effect there. It makes it a lot prettier. So if we wanted to make it longer, we could just go here, set the effect duration. We can make it 20. Whatever floats your boat, man. I think that looks great. There we go. We can just leave that as a jump cut. I think that looks fine because it's with the beat. And then here, that's a little bit of an awkward shot going from a pan to like that weird background. So we might have to throw a cross dissolve on here. There's also a bunch of other options we could use. We could use perhaps a slide if you want to try that. That also looks like a PowerPoint effect. And we'll just go with trusty cross dissolve. Cross dissolve is the best. Yeah, looks great every time. Perfect. So, I think we should do some stabilization. So if you notice, some of my shots here are pretty shaky. When we start off, it kind of wiggles around for a little bit. That one looks fine. That one looks alright because it's in slow motion, but you know, they could just be a little cleaned up. This is my favorite effect in Premiere, and it's called the warp stabilizer. So if you look up warp here, we're going to see distort, warp stabilizer. Let's use it on this first clip here so I can show you what I'm talking about. Drag it here. And it will take a little bit. It'll have this blue bar on it for a while. It's going to be rendering. And you can actually see it here if we open up our effect controls or warp stabilizer. So it analyzes frame by frame how stable the video should look. Once it finishes, it'll stabilize, and you'll have this very, very smooth looking shot. That is compared to what it was before, which was this. See that wiggle at the beginning? Now it's this. It is an incredibly useful effect. I don't know what wizardry they'd use to make it work, but it's great. I would recommend using it every time. And there you go. That just makes it look that much better. I think another shot we could use it on would be this frying fish thing. Just drag it in there. Now note, your mileage will vary depending on what computer you're using. Fortunately for me, it only takes a couple seconds, but for others, I've seen it go upwards of minutes. So now, if we play back,
Dax is on the beat.
very stable motion. There's an option over in our effects window if we want to have no motion. We can click here, change it to no motion. It'll restabilize again, and now it'll look like the shot was filmed from a tripod.
Dax is on the beat.
Going through, I would say that's about all we're going to do for today. Everything's faded out properly. So now let's get this from Premiere to an actual editable clip that you can submit to your editors for whatever deadline you're trying to rush to. Now here, you can't really see it, but we're going to click on File. Then we're going to click on Export, then Media. It's going to open up a window. It's going to say Export Settings. You can actually go through. This is a very useful tip. Scroll through and make sure everything that is in your video is here. Sometimes, if you're not paying attention, if you forget to delete that audio that we deleted earlier, all that extra audio that we faded out, this all at the end will be black. Just because Premiere thinks that there's still something there since you haven't deleted that scrap audio. So, we can go through, we verified everything's there, it ends where we want it to end. You can ignore most of these settings here. Let's do it like this. I believe it defaults to H.264, which is MP4, which is like the easiest type of file to share for video. It's not the best quality, but for our purposes, it's great, and for yours, it'll be fine. So here's where you can click on that blue little name and change your export file name. I'm just going to save ours to my tutorial folder. Now I'm going to call it tutorial. Wow, that's very unique, isn't it? Here you can ignore most of the stuff down here. This is just telling you how it's going to export the video in 1920 by 1080p. That's what I said before. 30 FPS, all this stuff. You can ignore all of this stuff. Your computer will automatically change it to whatever it needs. And from this point forward, you're going to have two options here, Queue and Export. If you hover over it, you see that Queue says Adds to Adobe Media Encoder Queue. Adobe Media Encoder is a new app entirely. I personally like using it, but for the purposes of this tutorial, Premiere has a built-in one that we're going to use. So we're just going to click Export immediately. Press that. It goes very, very quickly depending on your hardware. And like I said, mileage may vary. And it'll render out. Boom, your video is exported successfully. Now, if we go, I'm going to open up Finder. I'm going to go to my tutorial folder. Here, you will see a tutorial MP4, and if we open it up,
Dax is on the beat.
Alright, thank you for watching this tutorial. I'm Gabriel Wagner, here for all your Premiere needs. This has been How to Adobe Premiere. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye.